2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore, where we are beginning a whole different month. Where I believe we have chosen the films that scare or bug us the most. And I do believe that this is Jake's choice tonight. So, Jake, why don't you tell us what film you had us watch to try to chill us to our bones this Halloween season?
Right. I watched, or I had to watch a film, a 2010 film by director Darren Aronofsky, who we have encountered a couple times on this channel. In fact, the very first episode I did was our discussion of Mother. So sort of a return for me of sorts. This is his 2010 film Black Swan, which is a thriller and psychological horror piece about the ballet. And the film that won Natalie Portman her Oscar. So let's go ahead and go around and ask what everyone's take on this one is. And I'll just start with you, Tammy. Is this your first time watching this film, and what is your initial thoughts on it?
No, David and I believe, watched it like one other time, and I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, there's definitely parts of it that you're wondering: is it happening, or is she imagining it, or she think it's going to happen? So it definitely keeps you guessing, and like you said, it's a psychological thriller. So because of the guessing, and wondering what's real and what's not real is what gets you. But I really enjoyed it.
All right. Is that it for your initial?
For now.
All righty. We'll pop over to you, God, I guess.
Yeah.
Dave, what is, well, I guess Tammy just answered the question whether this is your first time. What is your, was that your initial viewing, and what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I remember Tammy Tammy pays a lot more attention to a lot of the trailers that are coming out on TV, and this was one that she was like, "Have you seen the trailer for this? Have you seen the trailer for this? This looks really cool." So finally, when it came out on a digital platform, I ended up downloading it, and we watched it. And then, of course, it didn't come up again until I started to learn a little bit more about Darren Aronofsky and start to actually have his name on my repertoire, because you guys kept saying Darren Aronofsky, and I think around that time Brandon was trying to get me into Perfect Blue. And somehow this film came up for a discussion. We had the lady who ran the Women's Film Festival on with us for that episode. So we have talked about it here on this channel before. And as far as my viewpoint on the film, well, I just recently saw the guy who played the ballet director dude in Westworld as like one of the bad guys. So that was kind of cool. Seeing a throwback to that show that we just recently watched. And Barbara Hershey, she is a phenomenal actress. She's been in a ton of things that I enjoy. And as far as things go, I mean, I guess the whole teacher and student taboo, forbidden relationship thing that's going on here. I feel like that's kind of like a stereotype for the most part, but I know that it does happen from time to time, and I know that there have been many college co-eds, falling in love with their college professors and things of that nature, and that's one of the things that this film touches on, and I think I like the fact that it kind of touches on that aspect of things while going through this psychological trauma, that just kind of unravels as the film goes on. So it was an interesting watch it again, and I guess the Black Swan character fascinates me. This film didn't terrify me. It didn't bother me in the slightest. Although the first time I realized that she had actually stabbed herself, which I'm sure we'll get into it later, that part just kind of was like, huh. But I enjoyed it. It was definitely not Mother, but it definitely had some terrifying elements to it.
Yeah. Good deal. Yeah, few things are Mother. That was a unique film. And just quick to quibble a bit. This is not. It's not a college co-ed and professor setting. This is a professional ballet company, but still, the idea of a apprentice and mentor, I guess, might be a little closer. But student teacher,
but it is the New York School of Ballet, so it is in a sense a school, and it is in a sense.
This is true.
So I guess it's kind of a little bit of both. So
right, it's like a level above. Yeah, I guess you could say it's kind of a level of the one. Anyway, Brandon, are you ready to go, or do you need me to do mine first?
I'm good. So no, this is not my first time watching it. I really don't know if we ended up watching the film together or not. I know that we watched it around the same time period because it was Oscar season.
Yeah.
And we were trying to prep for the Oscars. So I don't remember if I watched all the films that year. There were only a couple of years where I watched the majority of films for the Oscars before the show. But Black Swan, I definitely hit before that. And though I wouldn't consider the film scary in the slightest, I would definitely consider it disturbing. But I would say that's the same for every Aronofsky film. There are definitely parts of the film that make me cringe, like the part where she's ripping that skin off of her finger, and it just goes on, and that just...
yes, it made me cringe, and anything with their toes.
So, that kind of thing, actually, it's almost the same as they did in Fleas 2 with Evan Jacobs, his movie. He did something similar.
I'll admit, when they do something like with like bending fingernails back or eyelids ripping off or something like that, those jump scare moments, some of them get me. Like, I think Stir of Echoes, there's like this one moment where the girl falls on the floor and her nail just kind of flips backwards on the hardwood floor, and you hear the sound and it grates on your nerves,
Truly great indeed. But yeah, I looked at this as I liked it well enough. I could tell it was really well done at the time, and amazingly acted. And it's an amazing film, but it is extremely hard to watch. I think Jacob said it once when we were talking about Aronofsky today when we were trying to film the actual stuff.
Or pickups
And
or
yeah, and I would have to say that I mean Aronofsky's the kind of guy that the films are amazing to watch once, but then you don't ever want to really you have a hard time watching it again.
Right.
And I would say this is one of those that I never really thought about watching a second time, but I guess I was definitely going to do so regardless. So that was definitely my experience with it. I don't mind it. I know a lot of people again, I feel like it's one that is great overall, but definitely hard to watch. Just not one I would consider horror necessarily. I think it's something that Jacob and I definitely disagree on there, but I don't consider it horror as much of a thriller. And I do have some notes that changed with the secondary viewing on the relationship with the with the director that I'll probably talk about later. But overall, excellent movie, excellent acting, just difficult to watch. But still doesn't top Sallow. If you're talking disturbing, that's one that I will never watch again.
Okay.
So not nearly to that level of disturbing.
Okay. For my part, as Brandon alluded to, I watched this in the run-up to the Oscars in 2010. I don't even know if I waited. Like, Natalie Portman was winning awards right and left and in the middle. She swept almost every award show that year. So I don't even think I was waiting for the Oscars. I think I saw the movie, if I remember correctly, probably sooner than later after its release. But I also was already primed to watch Aronofsky as a director. I had gone to the theater to see Requiem for a Dream. I had seen Pi. I had seen. Let's see. I'm trying to remember my order of films here. I had seen probably The Fountain at this point, and I had seen The Wrestler, and The Wrestler was excellent. It is still probably, that one and Requiem are probably my two top ranked films by him. And so I was expecting great things. And I'm also a big fan of Natalie Portman. I was more so at the time. And I don't know if I don't remember if I knew who the supporting cast was. But once I realized that Mila Kunis was in the cast, this was the first film I saw her in a dramatic role. So that was really intriguing. That always stuck in my mind very distinctly. So I know there were a lot of reasons I sought the film out. And I walked out of the theater for Requiem for a Dream kind of shaken, but it was nothing on this one. I walked out of this one going, and no, the film is not scary. I don't consider it scary. I don't consider most films scary, but it's not that kind of horror film. But the idea that it's not a horror film, I do strongly disagree with, because it is very much psychological horror. Aronofsky himself has said that even though the film was not marketed as horror, that was always his intent. And also, there is body horror. Yeah, Brandon touched on it, but then, and I think Tammy mentioned the toes. There are scenes where there are full-on body horror, and I definitely, they did disturb the hell out of me when I saw this movie. Now, in fairness, I've seen a lot since then. Quite a lot in this channel, as a matter of fact. They have desensitized me to these kinds of things. And this time around, I didn't find the film nearly as difficult to watch. But there was a different element that hit me, and I think, Brandon, you seem to allude to this. Maybe you were thinking the same, maybe. The relationship with the director of the ballet, it came off creepy vibe this time around, post Me Too and all that stuff. I feel like I was even more primed to be totally creeped out by that story element, especially because, and I put it in the chat, but I've seen Vincent Cassel here and there and other things, but in this time, maybe it was the fact that he's playing a theater director, but also the way his hair was done reminded me a lot of Danny Kaye from White Christmas. But also, he looks so much like Mark Zuckerberg.
So an evil Danny Kaye. You can't. Did he go away?
I don't know.
Well, I'll say for me, the relationship was not as disturbing to me this time as it was the last time, and it was just the way I saw it was very different, because the first time I saw it was more of a oh, well, he's just this guy using his power to seduce the beautiful starlet, much like the one before her. But this time I looked at it and I didn't see any interest in her sexually other than getting her to act out the role with passion. And it's kind of, because if you look at it on the surface, oh, he's harassing her. But if you actually step back a moment and you get beyond the obvious sexual harassment, everything there, he would always start and then he just cut right off like it was nothing, because it was nothing to him. He was trying to draw out that particular acting in her. But as far as romantic interest, I did not see anything like that, other than what he was trying to draw out from her for the Black Swan.
So, do you think some of that sexualized, like that sexual stuff, that like when he kissed her and whatnot, that wasn't trying to seduce her?
It was, and it was not. It was not seducing her for the reason of. Let me put him back on. Oh, sorry.
What reason to seduce?
I didn't think that he was trying to seduce her to like sleep with her. He was seducing her to get her to feel something that she was not feeling, because she came across as cold, lifeless, and just mechanical. There was a series that we did for Anime Anticlimax that actually brought back feelings of this, called Your Lie in April, where the main character has the nickname Human Metronome because he's only mechanical, but has no feeling in his art. And there's a lot of similarities there, because you got to keep in mind, in that scene where he's seducing her, as soon as he gets a reaction from her, he just stops, cuts it off like right there. It's like, see, that was me seducing you, and then just walks off. If he'd been doing that to sleep with her, he would have just gone with it. And that's there. Sorry for going on the tangent, Jacob. I was trying to fill the time until you got back.
Okay. Well, I would. That is an interesting point, and I would say I give a somewhat different take. Though it's not. He accused her of being lifeless, but I think it's more. She's a very naive and innocent, kind of virginal type character at first, and he tells her repeatedly, "Oh, you've got the white swan. You don't need you got it." But he's like, the other one's a challenge for you. You need to work on that. And it's basically she doesn't understand the emotions that she's supposed to have as the black swan, basically. So that's why he was trying to get going. But anyway, sorry about that. I got booted off my computer for some reason. I don't know what was going on with that, but I think the point where I got booted off, y'all can let me know if this sounds right. But I was going to say one of the reasons why I always considered this film disturbing, and this was why it took me so long to watch it, why it took me so long to add it to the collection. I thought I had, and apparently I hadn't. And why I chose it for this discussion. Again, not that it's scary. It's not. It's that I found it disturbing. But the reason why I find it disturbing is because Darren Aronofsky really likes to do movies about people who are dealing with issues. And he is really, really, really good. Well, some might say too good at getting you into their mind, knowing what makes them tick, knowing who they are. He pulls you in, he lets you know who they are before he pulls the rug out from under them and you, the viewer, well, you're at it. And some of his movies have had arguably positive endings. The Whale had a remarkably positive ending, given how sad the movie itself is. And it's still very, 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 very bittersweet. It is not a happy ending, but it's more positive, if that makes sense. This
Positive
one
for
has
Aronofsky.
Exactly. There is hope there, just not necessarily, This one is decidedly darker in most ways. But the problem I had with this is that Nina's mind is fracturing and she is going crazy. And a big, 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 big part of that is that she is paranoid as shit in this. She is paranoid, and it gets worse the more she falls into the role, the more she becomes, and dealing with being a movie that puts you in that headspace of not knowing what's real and what's not, of being paranoid about everything around you. That's a really awkward feeling to have when you're watching a movie. You know what I mean? And this movie did it better than almost any film I've seen. So that's kind of why I felt that way. I do think that the second viewing, it didn't hit me near as hard on that. But I could still see that. And as things go really crazy towards the end, I was like, there it is. There's that feeling again.
See,
honestly, a lot of what goes. What's up?
I mean, she was kind of made that way by her mother, who was very much a borderline personality. And I would say that, and I would almost disagree with, I agree with you on naivety, but there was also a lack of emotion, a lack of feeling. It was all about the technique. It was all about doing it exactly right as performed. Because she was wound so tight. She was a tightly wound rubber band that was waiting for something to snap it. And this role, this inability to identify with it, that was what really snapped it.
That makes sense.
And a break, if you will, a psychotic break, technically, I guess you could say. Well, there's no technically about it. It was a psychotic break, so yes.
So, I had wondered, since you have a mental health background, I was feeling that she was, from a layman's perspective, I was feeling that she was definitely exhibiting almost probably straight up schizophrenia. Am I not right about that? With the hallucinations and all that stuff?
I think most people who are not in the field would look at it as a nervous breakdown. I would think of this more similar to what Jeffrey.
More than a nervous. I would think this is more than a nervous breakdown.
See, I would look at it more similar to what Jeffrey Rush's character went through in Shine.
Yeah.
Than I would say what Nash was going through in A Beautiful Mind, because this is a mind that's pushed to the brink. So, though it's possible that she could have been dealing with her first psychotic break for something like schizophrenia, we don't know that because she hasn't been to a point where she's been able to rest and reset to where we see it happening. We've only seen her under such severe duress that we don't know. And under such cases, she probably would have been hospitalized if her mother hadn't infantilized her to the point where her mother had, at the end, decided, I'll just stick with her because I'm the one who knows best. So it's hard to say. I think it's a possibility it could be, but it's also a possibility that all of the stress led to the mind just breaking and falling in on itself, and then hallucinations, not sleeping properly, not eating properly. She had obviously lost a lot of weight because she wasn't eating. So my guess is that after a while without sleeping or eating properly, her mind was just automatically hallucinating and going to places.
Makes sense.
But that's just my opinion.
You brought up a point that I'm a little surprised you didn't draw it over a little further, because you mentioned Your Lie in April, and you mentioned you compared her to the main male character in that one. But
he had a break too, if you think about it.
Right.
Back when he was on the stage, he had that break where he couldn't hear the music anymore. That was his
I was going to say, you didn't draw the direct parallel that I see pretty obviously when you think about that the parallel that he also had a very controlling mother who didn't the two of them were unfortunately the products of mothers who cared, but in a very skewed way.
Cared in a very caring way. Very
yes. But anywho, I guess I finished my. We'll go ahead and move on. If I think of anything else about the initial, I'll do that. But I think we got it. So IMDb gives. We've already kind of hinted at the basic plot, but the basic couple line description on IMDb. Nina is a talented but unstable ballerina on the verge of stardom. Pushed to the breaking point by her artistic director and a seductive rival, Nina's grip on reality slips, plunging her into a wake nightmare. So another thing I should mention with the initial for this is that I'm pretty sure Black Swan was the first one I saw, but there have been a lot of comparisons over the years, as we discussed when we discussed Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue. There have been a lot of discussions of how similar a lot of the basic plot points are. But they are different. I mean, that one's about an idol trying to become an actress. And this one is very deeply involved in the play, in the ballet of the Swan Lake. But Aronofsky has repeatedly brushed those aside and claimed that Perfect Blue was not an influence on this one. Bullshit. It wasn't. I'm sure it was an influence on this one. I will say, though, that my understanding is that the old film, The Red Shoes, has a similar concept in a lot of ways. And I'm actually not at all familiar with the ballet of Swan Lake, other than what's described in this film, and the music itself I've certainly heard quite a few times. I really would like to, one of these days, be able to revisit this with those three elements fresher or in my mind, so I can more fully appreciate it. But from what I've seen and what I understand, I feel like this movie, this is apparently the element taken from The Red Shoes, is you have a film that kind of echoes the story within the film, if that makes sense. And basically, Nina's life is becoming the story of Swan Lake in a lot of ways. She meets the Black Swan, who is a fellow dancer named Lily, who's played by Mila Kunis. And Lily becomes her friend-ish. And they become close, but the closer they get, the more Nina starts having traits of the Black Swan, the better her performance gets, all that stuff. But also, that's where she's having more and more hallucinations. There's also the star of the company who apparently got the boot right before she came in, who's played by Winona Ryder. Apparently she gets injured early on, and they see a few additional scenes of her in the hospital. But a very large percentage of her appearances are Nina seeing her face in the crowd. Like, she's hallucinating this other dancer's face. She's hallucinating Lily's face. It's... the more as the movie goes on, she has a harder and harder time keeping straight people. But anyway, let's go ahead and look at the I just did some character stuff right there. But what are y'all's overall thoughts on Nina as a character?
Well, I think that she was brought up to do what her mother could not. I think because her mother said something to the effect, "I don't want you to make the same mistake as me," which to me, it meant her. And I do think that her mother had the ballerina background and whatnot. So just like many pageantry mothers who would bring their daughters to the Miss America contest, pushed her daughter to be the best that she could be, but to an extent where she didn't have any friends really, and you could tell that around her room were things that a 9-year-old child would have.
Yeah, she was infantilized, definitely.
So to me, her mind was very much that of like an 8 or 9-year-old. So um, when she started interacting with people, it was almost like interacting for the first time. I mean, uh, I imagine that her mom was trying to mold her into being like fucking her, you know. So um, when she goes to the school, her mother expects her to do her duties, come home, be home on time, and all that jazz. And you know, Nina as a person, well, she, like every teenager who starts to grow up, starts to rebel. So I think that's part of it. But there's definitely some psychological stuff going on within her psyche um, before she even starts taking any kind of drugs. Which I wonder if I wonder if that even happened, or maybe it did, but it's kind of what pushed her, you know, to the breaking point. You know.
Well, that's one thing that I do find similar to A Beautiful Mind and this is that they do a great job of integrating the hallucinations so that we're always second guessing what's real and what's not. And this one is probably, it's not quite as good as that movie was, but it's probably the just right up there with it when it comes to doing that.
Right.
I thought that the mother was like very, very controlling and overbearing. I mean, you know, when they're having breakfast right at the beginning, you know, she comes over with her sweater. Oh, he wants her to put her arms up to put her damn sweater on. Like she can't put her sweater on herself. You know, she cuts her nails. She's just, she like tries to do everything for her instead of letting her be a person. And I think, you know, that's part of what I think pushes her because, you know, when she goes out with Lily, and it's kind of like she's seen the real world for the first time. You know,
Right.
it's, yeah, you can kind of understand then how the mother's actions pushed things too, not just it was, you know, it was her that pushed her.
Yeah. Well, here again, like you know, to go back to Brandon's comparison to Your Lie in April, again, I have a mother here who was a professional who had to step away and did not want to, and ended up basically the child became a chance at redemption, if you will, a chance for them to live vicariously the life they wanted to have. Uh, and yeah, it's unfortunate when you do get parents that do that, and probably you do get them to do it to this degree. And yeah, she really did a number on. I mean, uh, of
Well,
course,
you
you
know,
know her own.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I feel like her own development got pretty well arrested as well, with her being unable to let the past, the what might have been, just go. She couldn't do that.
Well, I thought that, like at the beginning, the thing, you know, with the sweater, and she puts it. At first, I thought they were goofing around and you know, and like that, and then you saw, well, no, that's not what it is, you know. But at first, I thought it was just mother and daughter goofing around and having fun, you know. But you soon find
Oh,
That's not what it is.
I mean, if the one scene that I think really drives it home, especially like even if it's hard to see it, sometimes the one that drives it home above all else is that cake scene. I think that right there, there's subtle things otherwise if you see the paintings and all that in her room, but that cake scene, that shows it right there, where she throws a freaking fit because she doesn't want to eat it, because Nina is, of course, having a lot of eating disorder signs, some bulimia, some anorexia. She's definitely headed in those directions, which many people who have to keep those light frames do, to their mistake, because you got to keep up a lot of strength. But yeah, in that case, yeah, with that cake, that was probably one of the more freaky scenes if you think about it, because the mother just threw a full-on fit of anger at her for not eating a cake piece.
Yep. Control issues.
Yeah. Alrighty. So, and then, like I said, we had Nina gets tapped to play the main part of both the White Swan and the Black Swan in Swan Lake. And like I said, she is told from the get-go, you have the White Swan. We got no problem with that. But you got to work at the other part. So her director is Thomas, played by Vincent Cassel. And we've already talked a little bit before about his, let's say, unconventional methods.
Yeah, he's French.
What's that?
He's French.
What's that? This is true. But what are y'all's thoughts on him as a character? The company
the
director
guy?
Yeah.
Well, in a sense, he is a very, very. I can tell that he's a very prestigious director, but he's also very strict. He definitely always needs someone to have a relationship with, because just like every artist has to have a muse. I think that's kind of his kind of persona. But he's also very good at what he does, because he does realize that Nina is very tense. So he doesn't. I don't think he even does anything with her. He just tells her, "Oh, go home and play with yourself," to maybe try to open up her sexuality a little bit, to ease up some of that tension that he sees around her, and she just kind of like goes with the flow. That's what kind of person she is. She seems to be. So she goes and does it. But
yeah,
who would have thought that her mother would have been sleeping in the same room at the exact same time? But him, I don't know. I think he's kind of an asshole too, because when he actually does like decide on her, I believe he's very cruel to the last leading actress, which is actually played by Winona Ryder. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm trying to remember if this was around her shoplifting days or not.
I feel like this was when she started coming back into the public view. I don't remember exactly. But yeah.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
ended up not being Hollywood's darling after for a time. So
You had me think when you're describing him, you had me think about a certain individual's description of his personality, which is I think this is applicable to Tama. I'm the best there is at what I do, and what I do isn't very nice. I think he definitely takes Nina to task for. I think he describes her as being kind of like a dead fish. I think at one point, I think he even called her a corpse at another point. Like basically, she doesn't. What I think the thing is, he's trying to get her to break free. He doesn't necessarily know that her mother is a big part of the reason why she's shut off from normal emotion. But yeah, he senses something's up, and he's trying to tease these feelings and emotions out of her to make her dance better. And he takes some pretty skeevy routes to get there, but I could see how in a post Me Too world, he probably would have been sued or worse easily by now. But anyway, Brandon, were you about to say something? I thought I saw some blip over there. Or Tammy, if you have any thoughts, yeah.
Oh, I understand where he was coming from and what he was trying to do, and like like you said, he doesn't know how her mother is and what she's had to deal with, but I think it was just a little conventional about how he did it, because he told her several times that she had all the routine done. She was perfect. She danced it perfect. But dancing it perfect is not the same as showing any emotion while you're doing it, just because you have all the steps. And he couldn't make her understand that because all that was on her mind was to dance it perfect. And that was her goal, to dance it perfect. So I think he could have maybe gone about it a little bit different than he did, but because he came across like kind of downright rude and mean, and
Right. I think there was another aspect too, and I can think of one particular scene where this really came to the fore a little bit. Nina, I do agree she's trying to be perfect, but I think she's also, I think that her, the way she's been raised or whatever, I think she has a deep-seated, desperate desire to make people happy, to please them. Like she wants to dance it perfectly because it would please her mother, basically. But she also wants to please the director. And there's like one scene where he keeps saying again, again, again. And, and finally she just breaks off and is like, well, could you tell me what I need to do? Could you tell me what I'm doing wrong? And then that leads into a little discussion where he basically, I can't remember if he told her all this right then or if it led to a later discussion. I don't know if you guys remember that. But he eventually ends up telling her basically that, I'm paraphrasing, I know this isn't what he said, but he basically says that you're too apologetic. You're always, she says, I'm sorry. And he's like, don't do that. So I think that might have been the biggest thing. Was she probably, I think his take on the Black Swan was sort of devil may care, I do what I want. And she hadn't figured that out. She always did what everyone else wanted. That's my read on it. But y'all tell me if you kind of see it that way, or if that's like totally off.
No, I see what you're saying, because I remember that part. She said sorry, and he goes, "Don't say that. Quit saying that." And
Yeah.
I do get what you're saying. She basically lived for everybody else. She wanted to make her mom happy by, dancing perfectly. She wanted to make him happy. She was trying to please everybody, and she forgot about pleasing herself.
Right. So enter Lily. Lily is the character that she's first introduced basically arriving late to a rehearsal. There are hints all along that she might have a closer relationship with the director. It's kind of, and that was another thing. One time, they had a little heart to heart, her and Nina, and the next day, the director comes to her and just kind of reams her over the discussion, like, don't go whining to other people. That's why he said, don't whine. And it's like, and then of course she finds Lily like, why'd you tell him all? But Lily definitely, she does that whole kind of bad girl thing. She even has a tattoo on her back that could be seen as black wings. Like I said, she definitely is sort of the in-story equivalent of Black Swan. And the closer that she gets to Nina, the more Nina starts to, at the beginning of the movie, Nina's always wearing white, pretty much, maybe a little bit of pink. That's it. She's basically dressed in white most of the time. And then as the movie goes on, she starts mixing in some grays and, a little bit of mixture. And then by the end, she's wearing black. And this is a lot of it. I mean, at one point, Lily literally gives her a black undershirt to put on. So it is sometimes directly Lily's influence. But they do have an interesting sort of relationship. It's kind of like a friendship. But the more paranoid Nina gets, the more, one of the reasons why she's so paranoid is her belief that Lily's out to get her and take her role. And she just becomes absolutely convinced of this by the end, which leads to some very interesting scenes. But I guess we'll get to that in a minute. But what are y'all's thoughts on Lily as a character and what have you?
She's the little bad girl who's gonna corrupt Lily. Corrupt Nina. She does everything that you're not supposed to do. She's smoking. She's eating burgers that are as pink, as red as they can be. She's, drinking. She's got the tattoos. She's everything. She is the complete opposite of Nina. And Nina seems to be totally intrigued by this. And because of it, it's so easy for Lily to basically corrupt her. Because I think Nina, in a way, idolizes her. And so she wants that's another one. Now she wants to make Lily happy, you know.
Yeah.
So
I thought that the girl reminded me a lot of Angelina Jolie's character in Girl Interrupted. Not quite as bad as that
Yeah.
character, but there's a lot of similarities in the personality. The problem with getting a full analysis of her is so much of what she does isn't real, and it's hard to say what's real and what's not, as far as what their relationship is, what her relationship with the director really is.
Yeah.
I mean, was
I
she
agree.
kissing the director? Did she
was
drug her?
actually banging him at one point after dark hours. Once those lights went out, yeah, I wasn't sure if that was just a vision that she was having or a reality.
Obviously, she wasn't there at the end of the movie when she was taking over the role of the Black Swan. But we know that, and she discovered that after the fact.
Right. And it's like there was the scene after the bar where they made mad crazy love in Nina's apartment, and then the next day Nina accosts her like, why didn't you wake me up? You just left. And Lily's like, what are you talking about? So like last night, and she's like, I didn't come over. And she's like, what, do you have a wet dream about me? You know, she's acting all flattered. But meanwhile, Nina's like, absolutely remembers that whole scene. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think you're right. Well, I know I feel you're definitely right. Lily is a very intriguing part of this story because so much her screen time is scenes that become suspect later on in the movie. So much of what is attributed to her in the movie could very well have been Nina just kind of imagining and projecting things. And it could be that they were just friendly acquaintances and that was it, you know? We don't really know because so much of the movie is in Nina's head that she is very much the essence of what you would call an unreliable narrator. And so I do find that whole thing pretty intriguing. I'm like, I did like it. And again, this was my first time seeing Mila Kunis as a dramatic actress. And I think she flat nailed it. I really think she's an underrated actress. She's made some unusual, sometimes regretful life choices outside of acting. But as an actress, I think she's done some great work. Especially here. But does anyone else have anything else they want to mention about characters before we really kind of, I think we've already hit the plot in broad swipes, but I would like to get into that next. Any more thoughts on character?
Not that I know.
Okay. So the plot is actually fairly simple and straightforward. And again, we've already hit it with the broad swipes, but essentially, you know, we have this childlike, infantilized dancer who is tapped to play the lead in Swan Lake. There is sort of this idea of in the ballet itself about this character having to fight and balance different aspects, different sides. And in real life, she is trying to do this, but she's struggling to do this because, as we said, she doesn't really have the tools necessary to have a healthy read on this story. And essentially, she just gets more and more paranoid. We've mentioned some of the major touchstones, like some of the conversations with the director, the night out with Lily, some of her confrontations with her mother, including the one when they come stumbling home and her mother, of course, is waiting and is not happy.
Look at the initial push towards it when you see how she has almost, or she kind of has designs on the original leader of the company as far as like the female lead, and then of course comes upon her when she's trashing her dressing room, and then sneaks in and in her own childish way does something that's breaking the rules, something that, bad girl thing, where she steals the lipstick and a couple other things because of her secret desire to have her place in the company. And there's a part of her that understands the paranoia because she herself was in that position. But she wasn't like pushing for it. She had been desirous of it.
Right. And then, of course, so let's see, was it Beth, I think was the name of the, yes, Beth is the older dancer played by Ryder, who, of course, they all talk about how old she is. And it's like, no, she's not that old. But in the world of ballet, it's unfortunate, but, but basically, she gets injured. Like she's in an auto accident, if I recall correctly.
She just walks out in the traffic.
Right.
Yeah, it was more like a suicide attempt.
Yes.
And if you look at...
she died. Oh, wait. No, she didn't.
She didn't.
No.
But the teacher actually said something that made me think that she was dead until she actually went and visited her in the hospital. But then again, was that in fact when she was stabbing her head? Was that like part of her?
That was that scene there. There was a lot of it there's a lot leading you to believe that Nina was the one that stabbed her. And because you get back to her holding the bloody knife in her hand, which she did not have that knife in her hand before. So it's very possible that she had stabbed her, and but she was envisioning her stabbing herself. But they hint at the fact that she has had suicide attempts or done things like this in the past. I want to say they hinted at an overdose at one point, and I can't be 100%, but she was definitely very, I hate to use the term histrionic, but that's as close as I can think of. But again, you've got to be kind of a little bit off to join into this this world where, yes, you have to have your body in the peak performance. And when you get into your 40s, like any sport, when you get in your late 30s and 40s in a professional sport, your body just cannot take that level anymore. I mean, how many football players do you see actively out in their 40s and 50s, or basketball players? Maybe baseball players. That's a little bit different, and golfers. But but those that have intense sports, boxers. I mean, there are very rare ones like George Foreman, but not very many past their prime. It's just one of those that you've got to really prepare for your time to end soon. And she was kind of hoping for her relationship to. I think she was hoping that her relationship with the director was going to save her, which it did not.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. And honestly, I take everything to do with the hospital visits, especially that one with the stabbing. Again, unreliable narrator. We have the thing where you see Beth stabbing her own face multiple times, and this is one of those scenes that still disturbs me. I'm not a fan of this scene. But then, yes, we go to the elevator where Nina is holding the bloody knife. But honestly, by this point in the movie, I'm kind of wondering if that wasn't an additional hallucination. Like, who knows if anyone got stabbed?
That is a good question. I mean, with her, she is an unreliable narrator. Of course, I understand what it's like to see stuff like that. I've seen stuff like that in real life, so I totally understand. But and I can understand being disturbed by that, because I definitely been disturbed when it's seen in real life. Not quite to the level that she's done. Yeah.
Right. And so basically, we ultimately get to the main climax of the film, where, first of all, Nina's mother takes it upon herself to call the company and say, yeah, she's not coming in today. And this is like the debut of the show. Like, this is the big night. And her mother just like, yeah, she's not coming in. So Nina wakes up, finds out what's going on, and is furious. Like, she is, at this point, she finally tells her mother pretty much what for. Like, she finally gives her a piece of her mind. I'm moving out, exactly. And she kind of races to the studio only to find out that Lily is being prepped for her role. And then she's like, I'm here. I can do it. And the director's
and
like,
Lily's complaining.
Can you
She
do
was
it?
not supposed to be here. She was supposed to be sick.
Yeah, exactly. And now, of course, Nina is convinced by this point that Lily is trying to take her place. And so this is just like evidence of that, obviously.
I'm not even supposed to be here today.
Exactly. You're not even supposed to be here. No. So they start the show. And she starts the show and does her thing. And at some point, I think it was after the first act, that Lily comes by to... Was it after the first act, or was it before the show? Where they have the scuffle. But they're in the dressing room, and they have a scuffle that involves breaking a mirror. And ultimately, Nina stabs Lily with a piece of broken glass and seemingly kills her. Stuffs her into a room, and I think it was her shower.
It was in the bathroom.
Yeah.
But the reason why it led up to this is that she had such tense anxiety that when she was in there, she ended up moving the wrong way, causing her partner to drop her right on the stage. And it was after that, when she was supposed to transition to the Black Swan, that she comes in and sees that Lily's already there, dressed up as the Swan. And one of the tells that I think is a good one for that is we also have that sort of transformation, like the literal transformation into the Swan, where Lily tries to strangle her, but can't get her grip because her neck elongates like a swan. So she gets that. And that actually is one early tell that, no, she's not there. But,
Actually, yeah.
I mean, with that,
I was going to say,
that rash on the back, that rash on her back is the one connection to her literal transformation the whole time.
that was one thing I was going to say. We should back up to mention the physical transformation, which is she has an issue with scratching her back, and you see that there seems to be something under the surface. You can't fully make it out for the most part, but we do have an earlier scene where you see little black kind of little barbed thingies come out of her back, and she plucks at one of them and pulls it, and she has a tiny little black feather that she's looking at. And I believe that was right before in her room where you actually had her legs transformed so that it was cut to be more swan-like. And that was kind of a weird-ass sequence that was kind of creepy. But then after she takes care of Lily and she takes the stage, you watch her physically transform into the swan. Like she, you get the feathers coming out, and ultimately her arms turn into wings and everything. And you see a scene from the audience where they're just looking at her, but you also see what she sees from the other angle. And I thought that was a pretty cool sequence. Even though I'm not a fan of body horror, I thought that scene, the transformation part of that dance, was actually pretty well done. And I like that sequence. It was a good example. The film doesn't have a huge amount of special effects, but what it has are, I think, very well used. But what do y'all think about that sequence, the transformation sequence?
Yep. I thought it was very graceful, and it was kind of amazing to see. Mm-hmm. Yes, the end of that whole thing is tragic, but seeing her actually nail the black swan, whereas you see her trying to do it, and I know me and Kim were watching it, and Kim's like, I don't see the difference. I don't really see where that's much of an issue there. And it's like, it is, if you look at her, how she does it, how she does the techniques. It's very mechanical, very precise. Mm-hmm. There's no emotion. But when you see her dancing as the black swan, you can feel the emotion from it, the raw energy coming from it, that as they say, the sexiness, I guess you could say, from it. But that is very different. I think it comes together very well because.
Right.
I
can also tell
go ahead.
Expressions.
I thought the transformation was something else. Like you said, there isn't much special effects in this film, but that was awesome. Her eyes turned red. The feathers started to come out. The stuff. Her arm started. I thought that was just great. And then watching her dance really showed how much she transformed, because nobody else sees her looking like a swan. Okay. But she feels like she looks like the swan, and the way she dances, she finally has everything that the director wanted her to have.
Right. Dave, you were starting to say something?
I thought the transformation was pretty effective. The almost fawn-like legs, the wings. She's to show the fact that she's becoming the part that she has trained herself to do. Is to me the more phenomenal part of the film, because once it's like that's the descent into madness, and once she goes no holds barred, she basically becomes a totally different person.
Well, she's already been stabbed in the stomach at that time, so she's bleeding out anyway. So there's nothing left to lose.
Right. And again, one could say how much of this can we take as gospel and how much otherwise. But later scenes definitely seem to hint that. Like I think it's right after this sequence that she sees Lily and Lily's like, great job, something like that, like real enthusiastic, real supportive, like, that you nailed it, like, and the director's very, he kind of gives his thumbs up, but Nina's like, Lily, what? And when she gets back to her dressing room, she had seen blood pooling under the door, and she had stuffed a towel up against it so no one would notice. And I'm trying to remember, because does Lily knock on her door to get, I'm trying to remember, because someone knocks on her door at that moment. But at any rate, that's when she notices basically that, like,
Yeah, somebody knocked on the door to tell her that she had like 5 minutes or something. And that's,
oh, okay. Yeah. But she had, she moves the towel and there's no blood, and she looks in the room, there's no one in there. And so she's like really wondering like what's going on. And we still haven't seen any wounds on her. So it's like you don't really see that. And then of course we got the big final thing. And she does her thing. She does a great job. She, pretty much nails it. She takes the swan dive at the end of the thing. I never really thought about it before. I guess, is that probably the origin of that phrase? I guess probably is.
probably. But just to mention something, before she goes out for that last scene, she does realize that she's stabbed because she pulls the glass out of her stomach.
Yeah, I do think that when she gets back into the dressing room, after the Black Swan, after she has accomplished everything she set out to, all of the psychosis goes away and she's pulled back into reality. And as she's being pulled back into the light, it's when she notices the stab wound, where she notices everything, and she resigns herself to her fate because she had let herself go and she could not forgive herself. Even though she didn't kill anybody, I do feel like she had resigned herself to her fate to finish the dance and end it. And that I feel like was her moment of clarity and sanity. And to me, I think that that's basically how it holds for her for the rest of the film.
I think there's something to that. I hadn't really thought about her having a moment of clarity at the end, but that certainly seems to track. And a lot of people have found the ending of the movie to be very ambiguous. Most of Aronofsky's films are. Most of them don't actually show the main character dying, but they usually show something where something's up. Like at the end of The Whale, the character does something that he's not coming back from. At the end of Pi, he puts a freaking drill to his head.
I was going to say, there's nothing ambiguous about Pi.
Yeah, but maybe though. Today I was reading about trepanning. Apparently, that is a thing throughout history. So it's not a good thing. It's not a smart thing, but people have survived it. So but I have read that Aronofsky has stated that in almost every case, the main character dies at the end. And from what I understand of Swan Lake, the main character dies at the end. So I think it's pretty unambiguous what the intent is here,
Oh, yeah.
but it's presented in an ambiguous manner. And a lot of people have actually taken it as, because of where the bleeding is, a lot of people actually take this as she is finally a woman. And which would be particularly tragic if she's also dying. But there's probably some truth to that, because she has finally broken free from her past. She has grown up in a sense. It just may not, she may not be able to enjoy this.
Yep, she is an adult.
Yep. Yeah. But, any other thoughts on that final sequence there?
Not that I know of.
No, I think I agree with you guys.
All righty. And before we move on to the production, I do have to give a shout out. We talked about a lot of the characters, but I got to give a shout out to Sebastian Stan, who would go on to find fame as the Winter Soldier in the Marvel films, and has also been in some other interesting films like I, Tonya. He is one of the dancers in the company here. This was probably one of his early roles. I didn't know who he was at the time. And he doesn't have a big role, but it is kind of interesting. One of those, kind of what they get their start sort of things. But okay, as far as the production, we've touched a little bit on some of the aspects. Aronofsky, I would argue, and I know some people would agree with this, some might not. But I would say that he is an extremely skilled director in terms of, he's a very, very artistic director. Let's put it that way. He is very, very artistic in his focus. He's really good at getting Oscar level, and in some cases Oscar winning performances out of his actors. In this film, like I said, he basically took the basic plot of Swan Lake and married it with a psychological thriller / horror film about a person who's going gradually insane from paranoia, and came up with a pretty fun result. Well, again, interesting. Maybe fun is the wrong word, but interesting result. But I would say this is the kind of film that in the hands of a lesser director would have not worked nearly as well.
Amazing cinematography.
What's that?
Amazing cinematography.
Yes. Matthew Libatique has done cinematography for most of Aronofsky's films, and he got an Oscar nod for this one, and he frequently gets Oscar nods for this work. And he is a very, very, very gifted cinematographer. The film also used very canny use of editing. Anytime you have a sports performance film where it looks like actors who are not athletes are performing, that takes some very skilled editing. And though there is a little bit of controversy over how much of it was Natalie Portman and how much was her body double, Aronofsky himself has credited her with 80% of the acting. So that's still a pretty good amount given how much dancing she does in the film. And then of course you got we have already touched on the visual effects. They're sparingly used in the film, but there are a few scenes where they're heavily used, and that, along with makeup as well, really did a lot with the transformation stuff. But what else? Did y'all have anything else to throw in on the production aspect of it?
I thought that having the background of the Black Swan, Swan was unique. It did wherever they filmed this at. It made it seem and feel like it was a dance studio.
Right.
Wherever they had even the smallest moments, like to be able to get into those small dressing rooms to film what they needed to film. That was kind of, I think, unique too. As far as production goes, I thought this was a very tightly knit together production. There wasn't that much that I could say was a mistake. You know, it was a very neat looking production. So
right. And they did a good job on a fraction of the projected cost. Apparently, the film had a $13 million budget, but they had expected a budget of twice that. So they had to make a lot of cuts to the plan for the film. But they did do a really good job, I think, of making it look like, the money went a long way. Let's put it that way. Now, as far as the music, there are some inserts. There are a few, especially in the club scene, there's some rock songs there or club type songs. But most of the music sounds very balletic. And from what I understand, Clint Mansell is the longtime collaborator with Aronofsky. He's done some really great work. I still say his music for Requiem for a Dream was freaking awesome. But in this one, from what I understand, Mansell apparently took the original music by Tchaikovsky and had it performed backwards. And I'm like, okay, that's an interesting take. But it definitely does give it a balletic vibe, but kind of an eerie, weird vibe of like, I know this, but I don't. You know what I mean? But what are y'all's thoughts on the music overall?
I mean, it's beautiful.
I thought like
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I had no idea that, from what you just said that there was a possibility that the music was performed backwards, but I felt that the music totally went with it, but I felt that there was, without knowing that, a somewhat of an eeriness to the music. So, but I thought it went with it very well.
I thought it was serviceable. I really didn't notice it.
All right.
The score by Tchaikovsky itself is an impressive work. I mean, Swan Lake itself is an impressive work.
Yeah.
But mixing it with the music that they put in, it felt like it went right along with Tchaikovsky's piece. To me, it flows well together and comes together as a greater whole. I would say that the score here is a good example of what really makes a great score, but also a great just selection of music on top of that. At least that's my thoughts.
Right. I would agree. If I was doing, I'd have to look at the other films that came out in 2010 to remind myself what exactly was out there. But I think this would probably have been a strong candidate for score, although it would not have been a candidate for original score if what I read about the score was correct. It would have been a strong candidate for our best score award. but also use of music in film, because that seemed to me like a pretty brilliant use. Now, one thing I didn't ask before, but I probably should ask, I'm familiar-ish with the music to Swan Lake, but I've never actually seen the production. Have any of y'all actually seen Swan Lake? Are you familiar with the story in that sense?
I imagine it's a little bit similar to the second part of the Mother's Goose nursery rhyme. The Ugly Duckling, isn't it? You know, kind of. Not the Ugly Duck. I think it was an Ugly Duckling. Because the Ugly Duckling turns into a swan, right?
It's more of a different take where you've got these people cursed to turn into swans. The closest thing to Swan Lake that you can think of in other media would be, say, like Princess Tutu, which is an anime like that, which is very tied to Swan Lake. I've seen the original way back on TV. I watched the ballet. But again, it didn't mean a lot to me as a kid. But the music, I mean, the score is amazing. I mean, Tchaikovsky is amazing in a lot of ways. I feel like I don't like Tchaikovsky as much as many of the classical people, but I do feel like he's got some amazing stuff. And I say ballet-wise, I prefer the Nutcracker, but still quite an excellent piece. I think they did very good here.
I like the Nutcracker myself. It's possible when I was a child I might have seen it because my great grandmother is the one that turned me on to the Nutcracker, and we went and saw it. You know, that was our thing. So I might have seen Swan Lake as a child because she might have, oh, it's on TV, type of thing. I don't remember it. It's like I remember there being something of Swan Lake, So,
right.
I guess after seeing this, I would actually almost be interested in seeing the real thing.
Right. That's like I said, if I revisit this somewhere down the road, I probably would like to see that first to kind of have some context. And Red Shoes. I have a copy of the Red Shoes in my collection, but I've never watched it. Now I have an excuse to watch it. But but yeah, and I'll go ahead and just throw it out there just for shits and giggles. I agree. The Nutcracker Suite is phenomenal. Is Tchaikovsky's work. I would call that the better piece of music or grouping of music, but that not to take anything from this one because it's excellent. I can't claim to have ever actually watched a ballet all the way through. I've probably seen bits and pieces. I have a hard time getting story just from dance, but might be worth giving it a go one day. But anyway. So I guess, does anyone else have anything else they want to throw out before we go into favorites?
Oh, I had something I wanted to say as a suggestion for this month. On top of favorites, I thought it would be good to also include a scene that unnerved or frightened you in the film. Unnerved would probably be the best for this one, but who knows? Maybe somebody was frightened by it. But unnerved, I think there's at least something in this that unnerved somebody here.
Right. Well, I don't know, Dave. It's kind of weird, but
Sorry. Nothing really curious to be here.
Well,
weird. There's many people who are exactly like me. So,
too desensitized.
Let's go ahead. Yeah. Okay. We'll go with that. exactly like you. It's like, oh, wouldn't that be something? But yeah, that level of desensitization, I get it. Yeah, everyone's got their own thing. And like I said, I was much more desensitized this time. The first time I saw this and it was like, what the hell? And this time I'm like.
But I do disagree.
Okay,
I do think that I don't think that you were severely unnerved, but there were some points at this that did take you aback a little bit, like the part with the nails bending back and things like that.
Oh, there are things I don't care for. And stuff with nails can be one of those. Generally, body horror, the whole picking at the feathers on her back, that bugged me. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of things. Let's so yeah, we'll do that. We'll do the scene that really unnerved you. If you want to throw out a favorite scene, we'll do that. And let me just see if I'm not thinking of anything creative. Let's go ahead and go with those. So Dave, we'll start with you. If you don't have anything that really unnerved you, like maybe one that made you a little uncomfortable or what have you, and then a favorite scene.
Even if it was a wafer thin uncomfortable.
I think the thing that bothered me the most was waking up, not waking up, but seeing her play with herself and then suddenly realize her mother was sleeping in the chair next to her. That would have disturbed me.
That would have been awkward.
Like if I decided to take care of my morning wood and my mom was sleeping like right next to me for some reason, that would like freak the fuck up, It's just not something that you
as
do.
It probably should. Yeah.
But as far as favorite scenes go, my favorite scene is always the very beginning when she's dancing with the Black Swan character, and when it appears in her dreams or whatnot. Also, the transformations scene, and yeah.
Okay. I guess we'll just go to the right. How about you, Brandon?
I mean, mine's easy because it's that part where she rips that skin off of her finger and it stretches out and rips like down her hand, and that just that unnerved me the first time and the second time. It's kind of funny because I'm desensitized, but certain things still can catch me, and that's one. Now that I am kind of glad I'm not desensitized to the point where Salola's meh. That would bother me.
Although I do think you were used at how you duped Kim into watching it.
Well, neither of us knew what we were getting into. She still hasn't forgiven me for that one. But favorite scene, I guess when she's actually dancing as the Black Swan at the end, and she's finally letting go and becoming the Swan. That I thought was really good.
Be the Swan. Cool. All right. How about you, Tammy?
Well, I have to agree with Brandon. Any of the stuff like with the finger, and then she pulled that skin back, and then her toes, and anything like that just makes me cringe. It's just, yeah, like I don't like any of those scenes, And I guess my favorite scene too is like I do like the ending. I do like when she becomes the Black Swan and then she gets the dance and everything. Um, I do like that, but I also like the beginning, like David said, when she was dreaming and she was dancing with that um character. You know, I thought that I like that one too.
Okay. All right. And for my part, I'm gonna partially agree with Brandon and Tammy. The scenes with like her picking at her fingers and some of those, the scene with the feathers on the back, those wigged me out. But the part I think that's going to be, if I had to pick the single most disturbing scene, is probably Winona Ryder's self-immolation scene where she's stabbing her face over and over again. That was pretty. And as far as favorites, I'm probably, strangely enough, I think I probably am going to have to go with the transformation scene at the final dance, that final sequence, where she finally, like where she was kind of becoming the Swan in bits and starts, kind of wigged me out a little. But when she finally did it, I don't know, something about that scene I really like. So I don't know. That might be my favorite. Nothing else leaps to mind as a definite second. Although, yeah, I will agree. A lot of the end where she, now that I'm, especially now that Brandon's got me thinking about it as this is her moment of clarity. She's finally gotten, control again. That's kind of a really fun way of looking at it. And so I kind of like that. Yeah. It gives this one a more hopeful read at the end than I had originally thought. Even though, again, we know she's doomed, there's a difference between like complete bleak nihilism like you get at the end of Pi, and this dude finally got what he wanted and is literally rising above, like we get at the end of The Whale. This one falls closer to the latter than to the former, if you think about it that way. So I kind of like the ending now more than I had before. But anyway, and by the way, we usually say this at some point, and I totally forgot to say it before now. Spoilers to multiple films. Anyway, so I guess that does it. If it does it for our talk on Black Swan. So Dave, if you want to take it back, go for it.
So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to our second discussion on Black Swan. For at least myself. I don't think, Brandon, you were on that one, were you?
Which one?
Nope.
No, I was not. Okay. So yeah, most of us.
I am the only one in this room that was in the original discussion on our channel. So, second discussion. I hope it went off to a good start. So, but
so
let's go around the room and tell you, the audience, a little bit about who we are. So, Tammy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm David's fiance, and I go on this channel and another and discuss the movies and like to listen to what everybody else thinks about them. And I have my own collection. And right now, I don't know what else to say about things except for, because the summer's winding down, so it's time to put my car away. I won't be going to my car shows anymore. So I'll have to look for something else fun to do in the wintertime.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Oh, I am Kotobukijake. I'm the co-host of SeptumSin versus the World, where we do all kinds of fun stuff related to media. We've been on a pseudo hiatus. Although we did post our Versus Award video last week, unfortunately, there were some technical difficulties. We did not have Matthew Libatique to make sure that it came out smooth.
It was those squirrels,
But
so they were supposed to edit it.
it was those darn squirrels. We will blame the squirrels. But anyway, we definitely encourage you still to watch it to hear the results of this year's Versus Awards, where again an Aronofsky film did win one award. Brendan Fraser did win actor for The Whale, so that was cool. I would have liked to see more go to that film, but such is life. And at any rate, I otherwise very busy. I've got my my normal job that pays the bills, but also am the co-founder of RVA Homegrown Natives, which unfortunately may be undergoing a little bit of a hiatus itself in a way. But we do have upcoming events. We've got a event called Punks for Plants, where several local native plant vendors will be teaming with some musicians at a local brewery for a fun afternoon/evening that I understand will also include karaoke, which is awesome. I love it. And we got a couple other sales coming up too. Also, I will be teaching a class on native plant, on invasive plants next week, so that'll be kind of cool. So I keep pretty busy, but I always like to make time to get some stuff watched. Both for our channel, we did do our anime anticlimax last week on The Shinesman, but also for this channel. And this, I think, is my third Aronofsky film. I did not see the original Black Swan discussion, as we just said. Like I said, my first discussion with this group was Mother, and I know we've covered Noah. Are there any? We haven't covered any others on my time here, have we?
Nope.
But
I
think it would be. There are some good discussions to be had there. I think one of these days, Requiem for a Dream, The Wrestler, and The Whale would all be really good ones at some point or another.
Oh, my father loved The Wrestler.
Yeah, that was a good one. At any rate, I guess that'll do it for me. Go on.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm SeptumSin of SeptumSin versus the World. We love physical media, and we try to shout it out. We are back from hiatus, unofficially so until Friday, but we've already filmed the episode, and I'll have it edited by Wednesday, and it should be up Friday, so we should all be there to view. I think it's going to be really cool. We're going to move to a weekly episode format with the occasional other, thing going around. But the way we're hoping to do it is every Friday around 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have another episode up, and we're going to keep going until we can't anymore. And I forgot. Schlockaholics is also coming back on that weekend, where we're covering the Matrosia, some of their short film collections on Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Alrighty. Well, my name is David Straggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous journey that we've been having as we've been rediscussing certain movies, at least for one of us. And I figured it was a fun discussion. So hopefully you liked it. Like, share, and subscribe. Also, I moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where we go on, or try to every Sunday, and kind of do some similar talks on different films with a different group. So, but I also do some video pickups and video reviews, and I hope to be finishing an anthology sometime soon. I'm working on getting the last scenes put together, and hopefully we'll be able to release it sometime in the near future. So it's kind of exciting. I know it's been a long journey, at least on that front, but it's been kind of a loving project that I've been trying to do in my spare time. So, in any case, hopefully, once again, you enjoyed our discussion. And, everyone, say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Night, everyone.